Over the years, we have seen some amazing VR games release, as well as some not so amazing titles. And the question comes up pretty often, what are my favorite VR games of all time? So here it is. Here are the best VR games ever created up until now. I should also say that this is my opinion, but at the end, I will stack up my 10 choices with the 10 best games picked by the community. That way, we can see the games that I love and the games that everybody else loves stacked up. I also want to mention that there have actually been a ton of really good VR games released. Making this list and narrowing down to just 10 turned out to be pretty difficult. If I did miss your favorite game or it's nowhere on here, I don't know, tell me what I missed. Or shoot, just write out your own top 10 list in the comments. So let's start with number 10. And that is No Man's Sky VR. We all know the story of No Man's Sky, the game that promised that anyone can do anything within the game. Back in 2016, No Man's Sky was hyped up by Hello Games and its founder Sean Murray and boosted by a massive PlayStation marketing campaign. Among its promises were a limitless, procedurally generated world to explore, a thick storyline all about exploration and finding the meaning of the universe, and giant creatures humans have never seen traversing planets, among many other things. I mean, the game was supposed to be so massive that Sean Murray said it would be likely that no one would ever cross paths. But if they did, multiplayer was included and you'd know that they were there. Well, that happened on the first day of release and yeah, there was no multiplayer. And this is where No Man's Sky got the reputation of being called No Man's Lie. However, 4 years of solid support and frequent updates and Hello Games has finally turned No Man's Sky into something not only representative of the original massive vision, but far better. And back in 2019, VR support was added, instantly making No Man's Sky one of the biggest VR games on the market. It's turned into a huge time sink for me, and it's a game that has some of the most immersive qualities out of any that I play. Whether it's traveling around the universe alone or getting a group of buddies to build a base, No Man's Sky has evolved into a redemption story and has become one of my most enjoyable VR games to hop in. Plus, after some recent patches, the game itself runs pretty well, which is not something I could say about every flat to VR port. Number 9, Stormland. Stormland often slides past lists like this because of 2 reasons. 1, it's an Oculus exclusive, and 2, because everyone forgot about it because it's an Oculus exclusive. Now, I understand why games are exclusive, and that's a video for another time, but you have to admit it, exclusivity hurts a game's notoriety. However, if you don't mind running Revive or you have an Oculus headset, it is one of the best action RPGs out there. A beautiful game world, great shooting mechanics, a system of upgrading yourself that involves ripping off your own arms to replace them with better pieces, which really feels weird in VR by the way, and a really good storyline to go along with it, plus co-op multiplayer support and a load of endgame content to play. It's a no-brainer. It's just a flat-out good game. Probably one of the best ever made for just VR, but like I said, it's exclusive. Number 8, Pavlov. So let me just say this right off the bat. There are better VR multiplayer shooters than Pavlov. I mean, we got Onward, Contractors. Shoot, I even think that Echo Combat is a better competitive shooter than Pavlov. But unless you want to be playing with the same group of 20 people over and over again in these other games due to low player population, you're kind of stuck with Pavlov. Of course, that isn't me saying that I hate the game or that I even think it's bad, but I don't think it's the best. However, it is where the people are at, so if you want a bustling online community to betray in TTT or just play a deathmatch in, Pavlov is the best way to do it. It's commonly known as the Counter-Strike of VR, and that's because it kind of is. All in all, it's got the biggest player base of any VR shooter, has a pretty wide assortment of game modes from classic bomb planting to zombies, gun game, deathmatch, and TTT, and the graphics and gunplay are sound. Plus, you won't be sitting in a lobby for 30 minutes just to find a game like in some other VR shooters. Space junkies. If a large community and solid gameplay mechanics is what you're looking for, then Pavlov is just the best option. Number 7, Skyrim VR. If you've played video games over the past decade, you've probably already played Skyrim at least once, or maybe 20 times. For a game so young, it already has this feeling of nostalgia around it, which makes its entry into VR as a port that much better. The game itself is exactly as you remember, all the DLC included, but playing it in VR is definitively the best way to enjoy Skyrim, especially nowadays. The world's massive scale and attention to detail easily make it one of the best open world RPG experiences for virtual reality. But the secret as to why it's so good lies in the mod support for Skyrim. With just a few minutes of your precious time modding the game, Skyrim VR turns into a completely different beast. Full body mods, graphics mods, texture overhauls, water mods, sexy mods, Thomas the Tank Engine mods. Look, Skyrim VR isn't just a game, and it's not the game that you remember. It's a virtual playground that has one of the biggest modding communities backing it. While some of the controls right out of the gate are questionable, and the stock graphics of vanilla Skyrim don't look any better close up than they did in 2011, you can change all of that and have an absolutely wonderful time committing crimes against Skyrim and her people with your own two hands in VR. Number 6, VR chat. Look, if this list was based on how much time I actually spent in each game, VR chat would absolutely, without question, be number 1. VR chat has sucked away thousands of hours of my life, and I have met some of my closest virtual friends while playing, had some of my most memorable nights, and it's the biggest online community for VR by far. Some could argue that VR chat isn't even a game and doesn't deserve to be on this list, but in my opinion, that opinion is wrong. There are quite a few games built into VR chat made by the community, which makes it that much cooler. Plus, you just can't argue with the player populations. There are a lot of VR users in VR chat, even if only 30% of these people are even in VR. If you want a place just to hang out with people that love VR, or get totally hammered and wake up on the floor in the Void Club, both are valid things that you could totally do within the world. In terms of VR games that have had the biggest impact on me and my perception of social interactions in a virtual world, and have made me a true believer and fan of a VR future, VR chat is it. It's got its issues, like terrible performance, rampant stolen assets from other creators, and a bit of toxicity, but I love it all the same. Number 5, Walking Dead, Saints and Sinners. I don't care about The Walking Dead. In fact, this game having The Walking Dead name on it does it no justice in my opinion. But the game itself is absolutely amazing. Robust physics systems and interactions make the world feel pretty real, beautiful environments, or at least as beautiful as a destroyed post-zombie apocalyptic world can be, and a really engaging story make The Walking Dead an easy pick on this list. Plus, it's soon to be available on just about every modern VR headset out there. Quest, PC, PSVR. It's a VR game that has depth in every way. Graphics, gameplay, story, world building, and whether you like The Walking Dead or even hate zombie shooters, it's an easy recommend. Number 4, Beat Saber. Now, I bet there are a bunch of people out there pulling out their sabers right now wondering why Beat Saber isn't even higher on this list. Let me explain. Beat Saber is awesome, and VR really wouldn't be where it is now without the viral videos of Beat Saber through the years and the giant community behind it, supporting the game both in terms of custom maps and the competitive scene. It's a really solid rhythm game. It's great. It has a giant skill cap that can take thousands of hours to master. For example, the game can look like this, or it could look like this on the highest of difficulties. But at the end of the day, for as many hours as I've put into Beat Saber and as large as the community is behind it, it's hard to compare a rhythm game, no matter how good they are, to my top 3 games, which I consider masterpieces in the art of VR game development. Let's start with number 3, Lone Echo. For years, Lone Echo was my favorite VR game. In fact, I've made an entire video on why it held that title for me. To think that this game released almost 3 years ago, in the middle of 2017, absolutely blows my mind. To this day, it has some of the best visuals and environments of any VR game out there, and my favorite part about it is the locomotion system for the game, using an ingenious system of pushing yourself off of walls and using booster packs, since the entirety of the game takes place in 0G. There's absolutely no need to fake run with a thumbstick. Plus, it's one of the only games on this list that doesn't really feature combat. The storyline is a beautiful 7 to 10 hour arc that takes you through an emotional, sometimes scary, sometimes puzzling ride, and you don't shoot a gun even once. When I realized that, I was kind of a little shocked. Then I thought that this game shows off something really beautiful about VR. This is essentially an action RPG, but without all that action RPG tropes that we see in just about every single game. Plus, there's the whole online add-on of Echo Arena and Echo Combat, 2 bustling and competitive multiplayer modes that use the same locomotion system. Unfortunately, this is yet another Oculus exclusive, which if you haven't heard of this game, that's probably why. It does work well with Revive though, I can attest to that. And without this game being an exclusive, it likely would have never even happened, especially back in 2017. So I guess win some, lose some. Number 2, Boneworks. Boneworks is a great game in some ways. The physics-based combat and levels, the actual level design, pacing of the main story or what there is of it, and the visuals make this game an absolute blast to play. Boneworks is the kind of game where you could look at something and think, I wonder if I could do that, or I wonder what happens if I try this. Then you try it and well, you can do it. The sheer number of gameplay possibilities are out of this world, and I haven't even mentioned how good the enemies are in the game, or the gigantic range of weapons available, or the constant support to add more to the arena and sandbox. Once you get used to how the game works and feels, everything you can do in Boneworks becomes incredibly satisfying. But I do know that there's a decent group of people that just can't play Boneworks. They get sick, or they just can't enjoy the game fully because they can't handle smooth locomotion or the fast movements that make the game fun. But that's kind of why I love Boneworks. It pushes the envelope like no other developers will. It truly is for advanced VR users and people with strong VR legs like the disclaimer says. And I'm glad to have a game that is for someone like me that is just that. Now notice I said that this is a great game in some ways. One way it fails is the storyline. It's rushed sorta all over the place and it doesn't really have a satisfying conclusion. Does the rest of the game and the gameplay itself make up for that fact? A little, but it does stop Boneworks from taking the #1 spot. Which brings me to number 1, HalfLife Alex. Look, I'm sure that you guys could have seen this coming from a mile away. In terms of VR masterpieces, HalfLife Alex takes the cake. The gameplay is tight and the combat is well thought out. One of the first things I noticed in the game in general was how well the world was scaled. Objects, enemies, everything just has a sense of realistic scale, and it really makes things like the Combine and Striders pretty terrifying. And I'll be honest, I have gripes with how limited the combat and movement feels in HalfLife Alex, especially compared to Boneworks. But in terms of getting a mass amount of people enjoying the game, Valve took a far more conservative approach, and it paid off. Where Alex really shines is in two areas: environments and story. My god, the environments in this game surpass anything I have ever seen in VR by a long shot. Of course, Valve has had years and years of game dev experience in VR and millions of dollars to throw into development. A luxury most VR developers do not have by any stretch of the imagination. But oh my gosh, this game just looks amazing and has led to some of the most jaw-dropping immersive moments I've ever had in gaming, period. Then Alex has the story and lore of Half-Life to back it up. I mean, I guess you could go wrong there, but it'd be pretty hard to do. All I'm gonna say to avoid all spoilers is that the story is fucking good. The game is happy, scary, frantic. I mean, it's about as umami as a storyline could get. It's the best that we've seen in VR yet, and I'm hoping that Half-Life Alex sets a new standard for VR games moving forward, a new bar to hit. We all know that software sells hardware. We just need more of this. And of course, before I reveal how my choices stacked up with the communities, I've got a few honorable mentions. First off, Gorn / Hot Dogs, Horseshoes, and Hand Grenades / Blade and Sorcery. I'm lumping all of them together because they're kind of a similar arena-style single-player fighting game. Each has their own caveat and things that make them special, and they're all great and good fun. You could easily spend hundreds of hours in any one of them. But it's hard for me to compare an arena sandbox wave killer to freaking Half-Life Alex, if you know what I mean. Elite Dangerous. Look, Elite Dangerous is awesome and amazing. I just personally like No Man's Sky better at the moment. VR Kanojo. Well, wait, what the hell are you doing here? Get out of here. Vader Immortal series. Great Star Wars VR games, but they're short as heck. Also, there are some awesome PSVR games that would have made this list, but I can't play them because I don't have a PSVR, so they're not on this list at all. Thanks, Sony, for all of your crazy lockdowns on exclusives, but then again, I guess PC does the same. And how did my list compare to the community's top picks after nearly looking at 1,000 responses? Let's take a look. And according to the sample group as well as myself, these are the absolute best VR games out there on the market right now. Of course, some were left out, I am absolutely sure of it, but hey, there's always room for more videos in the future. I will be streaming today on Twitch, so stop on by and say what's up and we can talk VR. I want to thank all of my Patreon supporters, especially my Omegas like Zimph, Very Evil Shadow, and Benji. I literally couldn't be doing any of this without you. Don't forget to like this video if you loved it, subscribe if you want more of this, and hit that freaking bell if you just can't live without it. Much love, Thrill out.